Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we're taking a look at Steven Soderbergh's new feature, Presence. Bit of a weird one, man. Single camera perspective. The house is haunted, and we're the ones doing the haunting. Kind of fun. Stick around for the review. We're going to talk about the Oscar noms, all right? They're out. They're here. Actually, did something a little fun on the show this week. We're going to tell you more about it when we get to it, and then we'll get to the Oscar noms and, hot takes, what's coming out, why Emilia Pérez got 13 noms. Stick around. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about a different man. This is that odd Sebastian Stan feature. With the wild makeup and the crazy transformation. This has got a lot of attention last year next to The Apprentice, the other feature he was in. Excited to talk about it. And before we get to all that, we need to get to the news. Before we get to the news, we got to talk about the pre-show. Andy, what'd you watch last week? Anything juicy? Anything exciting?
Yeah, so in honor of the late David Lynch, I took a look at Blue Velvet, which is available on HBO Max. Never seen it before, and I always kind of see it as a thing to watch, and so I checked it out, and I enjoyed it. It's definitely David Lynch, and it's definitely got some weird stuff in there, but it's very dreamlike in quality. It's one of his earliest collaborations with Laura Dern and Kyle MacLachlan. It's pretty good, and Isabella Rossellini, who was just nominated for an Oscar for Conclave, is in it in an kind of incredible role that a lot of people thought she should have gotten a nomination for that. Also, with you and our good friend Matt, we also saw the Indiana Jones Symphony Experience, where they play the movie with a live symphony orchestra. That was a lot of fun. And I also took a look at our own Timothy Chalamet on Saturday Night Live, who was both musical guest and host, which hasn't happened in a really long time. Something like 30 years they haven't done that. He was really impressive. He really knows the gig. I've seen some actors go on Saturday Night Live, and maybe they're not as comfortable on the stage or in live, a live setting or in the kind of improvisational nature. But he's great. He's really funny. And then he killed it as the musical guest. He covered Bob Dylan, but he didn't do the Bob Dylan voice. He didn't do the bit from A Complete Unknown. He did it as Timothy Chalamet, and it worked. So, I mean, I think his Oscar campaign is pretty strong.
Yeah, Timothy Chalamet seems to be on kind of a historic run at the Oscars. I would be stunned if he didn't get it. We'll talk about it more in our Oscar noms section coming up here. This week I watched the next episode of Severance, season 2, episode 2. Still rocks. Still recommend. Went and saw Indiana Jones Symphony with you. That was the big watch. I'm gonna be honest. I think if there's anything I learned from watching Raiders of the Lost Ark with the symphony concert, it's how incredible the visuals are in Raiders, because the music is great. But dude, I still get pulled into that screen like it's the first time I've seen it. Like, it's nuts. And it was really cool to watch it with such a big audience, right? Like, because it was a symphony audience. Last time we saw it was at the IMAX. Everybody who came to the IMAX was a nerd. The people who came to the symphony are like rich people, right? They're like people with class. And like, it looked like a lot of them hadn't seen that movie in years. And like, there were big laughs and like big gasps. And like, it's good. It's a good time, man. It's a really good time. Would recommend. It's my first symphony feature. And I think your first one too, right?
Yeah, I hadn't seen that before. Well, actually, I did see Metropolis, the 1923 German silent film, with live score, and there is no original score to that. So that actually gets done quite a bit. I saw that at a Texas theater. But yeah, it was interesting because it was a mix of like a symphony crowd and a movie going crowd, and it reminded me how funny Raiders of the Lost Ark is, because there was just lots of laughter, and every little gag that you don't think of when you're watching it by yourself gets like a huge roar in a big crowd like that. So it was a really fun time.
Yeah, dude, it's a really good time. Raiders rocks. It might be the best movie ever. I don't know if we ever talked about that here on the podcast, but I remember last time we saw it having that conversation outside. Like, it might be one of the best films of all time. It is incredible, dude. Like Spielberg, it's great. Anyway, enough about Raiders. We got to get to the news. Our first story this week: Robert Eggers has got a couple new features coming, which is nuts because he just did Nosferatu, right? But let's remember, he actually shot Nosferatu in like 2023, and that was kind of ready to go by the end of 2023. And then they sat on it for a year. So he's been chilling, all right? He's been down in the lab, he's been working, and now we know not one, but two upcoming Eggers features. Andy, what is the man working on?
The man loves a period piece, and so he's going to be bringing a werewolf drama in 13th century England, I believe. Another monster feature, another period piece. That's where Robert Eggers loves to live. He's also going to be doing a sequel to Labyrinth, the classic David Bowie, Jennifer Connelly feature from the 80s. He's going to be doing a direct sequel to that, which is down the line after the werewolf movie. So he's got the rest of 2020 is booked for him.
Yeah, Werewolf I think is, to me, maybe the more exciting feature. Don't get me wrong, Labyrinth is rad, but he co-wrote Werewolf with his Northman co-writer, which is cool. I can't pronounce this. Sjan, S-J-O with an apostrophe over at N. Details are scarce, but we know it's set in 13th century England. We know it's got a lot of Old English in the script, and most importantly, it's spelled funny. Just like The Vitch, right? His first movie, VVITCH. Werewolf is WERWULF. Feels like a send up to that old classic. Feels like it could be a good time. And notably, unlike Nosferatu, I don't think it's going to be a direct adaptation of a previous work. It's probably going to be a little bit more original that way. And for those of us who love Eggers, I think Nosferatu helped draw a line in the sand that like his originals and his adaptations are two different things. And I think some of us like his originals a little bit more. That was my big complaint about Nosferatu. It wasn't more original. It was more like just right off of what he had kind of taken from the original. Labyrinth, meanwhile, going to be an adaptation, right? Going to be a follow-up. Going to be a set in that world, I assume, right?
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, he does such a great job at world building, at just really transporting you. He has so much style. I mean, people are just loving Nosferatu. It's overperforming at the box office, doing way better than a lot of people thought. So if he brings that kind of creativity to such a storied property, I think it's going to be great.
Speaking of transformative, allow us here on Off Script to transform you to, or take you to, the 2025 Santa Barbara Film Festival, where they'll be premiering Kevin Costner's new American Saga Horizon Chapter 2, which is really exciting because we watched Horizon American Saga Chapter 1 on here, and it's okay, I guess. And boy, it feels like he's going to need a lot of runway to get to part 4, which is the plan. Chapter 4, my God, what a segue. Andy, what do you know about this?
So we've been watching with bated breath the whole Horizon, a Kevin Costner saga. This was, of course, his big 12-hour epic set of 4 movies that he had planned to make. He made the first one. It's 3 hours long, came out in the summer. The sequel, the second movie, was supposed to come out just 2 months later, but the first one did so badly they held on to it. Who knows if parts 3 and 4 will be made, but it is finally coming out at the Santa Barbara Film Festival on February 7th, where they will also be screening the first movie and then the second movie. So you can get 6 hours of Horizon Chapters 1 and 2. You can also stick around for the documentary that they're also making, Beyond Horizon, will also be played at the film festival. So at least it has some sort of distribution. I think this is going to get sold to a streamer because, man, it's bad. It's lost so much money.
Yeah, let's remember, it cost about $100 million to shoot the first 2 films. They shot them back to back, and Costner put up about $38 million of his own, which is nothing to scoff at. Not quite Coppola numbers, but real big. And Chapter 1, while it had a great cast and a lot of big visuals, its biggest criticism that it's really long and that it's fairly boring. And that ideally it's setting up for big action to come in part 2. There's a big tease at the end. You see a bunch of footage that was in the trailer for the first one, but didn't actually make it into the first chapter, of explosions and a wagon run and Kevin Costner's shooting a gun. Big things are coming in Chapter 2, and they're going to have to come, because outside of being optimistic about what could be there, if Chapter 2 is boring as the first one, dude, I think the whole saga's toast. Because I don't know who comes back for Chapter 3 besides hardcore Costner heads, and they were going to be there anyway. You need Chapter 2 to be a shot of adrenaline to the arm in this series, I think, because Chapter 1 is good setup, but not enough payoff. You think he's going to get there? What are you predicting for Horizon Chapter 2?
I mean, I feel like even if it's strong, even if it's a good movie, it's just not going to have the audience. You didn't find the audience the first time around, so what makes you think they're going to show up to the sequel? I think that this is just dead on arrival.
Same. Hey, Martin Scorsese's back from the dead, or at least his new project is. Devil in the White City is a movie that was talked about for a little while, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, ideally, in a Eric Larson adaptation. Devil in the White City is about a murderer in the 20s who has a crazy murder house right outside the World's Fair. I think it's the 20s. I'm not even confident. But what I do know is Martin Scorsese and DiCaprio were supposed to adapt this into a movie for a while, starring DiCaprio as the murderer. And then I read he was going to be the investigator. Either way, the whole thing kind of went belly up and didn't really go anywhere after a few years. And it was a bummer because I hear it's a really good book and it seems like something that both of them are really into. And now suddenly it might be happening again. What do you know about this story, Andy?
Well, it does seem like this is going to be his next project and that it's finally going to get going. This has been talked about since about 2010 in multiple variations. At one point, Catherine Bigelow was attached to direct. At one point, it was going to be a series on Hulu. So we're back at just it being a regular movie, and it's about serial killer H.H. Holmes, who was active, like you said, during the World's Fair at the kind of turn of the 19th century. So late 1800s.
Way off on the 20s. That's fine.
Close enough for jazz. And that'll be fascinating. And we haven't seen DiCaprio do that kind of role, especially, I mean, we've seen him probably Django Unchained is the last time he was like a real villain. So it would be interesting to see him be like, because he's going to be playing the serial killer.
Yeah, like it's really a layup of a premise, right? Like A, the book's already successful. B, true crime is very exciting nowadays, more so than ever before. And C, like DiCaprio plus Scorsese is usually a banger. All three of these things come together in a period film. I will go see Devil in the White City. I will take everybody I know to go see Devil in the White City. Can't stop talking about Devil in the White City. If only it can get made. You're right. Like at one point it was a Hulu series. Todd Field was going to direct a couple episodes. Keanu Reeves was going to star. Now that's not happening. Hopefully this rolls in somewhere because I've seen enough copies of this book at Barnes & Noble. I'd like to see it on the big screen. Any other thoughts on this one, Andy?
Excited to see it. Excited, for them to work together again.
Flight Risk is a box office risk. Mel Gibson's new feature is not doing too hot at the box office, which is nuts because it had all the big screens this weekend, Andy. I saw D-Box Flight Risk available, which is crazy. This is that new Mark Wahlberg feature. If you don't know it, Andy could tell you a little bit more about it, I think. What's going on with the new Mel Gibson banger?
I'm so glad that this movie is finally out because I've been watching the trailers, I feel like, for 6 months, and it's a boring premise. It's a boring film from what I've heard as well. It's doing okay box office wise. It still needs to have some good weekends to kind of make up its budget. Mel Gibson hasn't made a film in almost 10 years since Hacksaw Ridge in 2015 or so. So this has been pretty weak. Some other things happening at the box office. Mufasa doing really well, coming in at number 2. One of Them Days, the new comedy starring SZA and Keke Palmer, at number 3, and Sonic the Hedgehog continues to do well at number 4. So a quiet weekend. It's the January doldrums where not a lot comes out, but there's still some money to be made.
We didn't watch Flight Risk, but I really like this quote from the Hollywood Reporter reviewer Frank Scheck, who wrote of Flight Risk, quote, "It's clunky dialogue, uneven performances, and less than grade A special effects ultimately make it the Spirit Airlines of airborne thrillers." That's fantastic. Reviewer Mark Kermode also was really cool on it. The last movie Gibson did was Hacksaw Ridge in 2016, which got a lot of praise, right? Vince Vaughn, Andrew Garfield's in that feature, right? He's the pacifist, not gonna fight soldier, right? The medic. That's the whole deal.
Yeah.
I know right now he's working on Passion of the Christ 2, which is a real movie, and I'm very curious to see. That's probably gonna make like $500 million.
It's going to hell.
That first one made so much money. It's right. He's coming back though. Anyway, like Gibson, obviously, bit of a miss with Flight Risk. Kind of a bummer. I don't know. Meanwhile, one other story I heard from the box office regarding Presence, Steven Soderbergh's new feature. That movie was made on like a micro budget. And we're about to talk about it here in a second, so this might be a good lead in. And while it didn't make a lot of money at the box office, I'm pretty sure it already cleared its whole budget, right? In like one weekend. It just a handful of $1 million and we're already over the top.
Yeah, but basically that's how been going.
I love it. Well, hey, not so bad. Speaking of low budget horror thrillers, we got to talk about this movie. This one's a weird one, man. Like I remember seeing the trailers for it and thinking it sounded like a cool idea, but it also seems like it might be dull. It's single camera. We haunt the audience. I'm not the one talking about it. Andy is, so I'll get out of his way. He's gonna be taking the summary. So, Andy, please take it away.
Presence. So this is the latest film by director Steven Soderbergh, who of course has done things like Traffic, Aaron Brockovich, Ocean's 11 back in the day. He's really big on experimenting with the medium. This was written by David Koepp, who famously also wrote Jurassic Park and is writing the new Jurassic Park that comes out this summer. Presence is about a presence, an entity. It's a ghost story, not so much a horror movie, but a ghost story from the perspective of the ghost, the entity, whatever's haunting this house. And we meet this ghost right at the very beginning in an empty house, and we kind of float through all the rooms up and down the stairs. And it's a very kind of floaty thing. And apparently Soderbergh was using some new camera that had been developed, and he's running all around this house, backing into the closet, into some really tight spaces. So you get that feeling of something floating through this house. Eventually a family moves in, a family of 4. Lucy Liu plays the mother, Chris Sullivan the father, newcomer Callina Lang plays Chloe the daughter, and Eddie Madej plays Tyler the son. All American family. Lucy Liu plays this kind of tiger mom, corporate type. She's really high up on her high performing son, he's like a captain of the swim team. He's a jock, and she's all about him. She's not as interested with her daughter Chloe, who is struggling. Chloe has suffered the loss of a good friend and is really struggling in school and kind of in life. The father, Chris, played by Chris Sullivan, is really concerned and wants her to get help, go to therapy, go to maybe get on some medication. And the mother's like, no, she just needs time. Like, she just kind of doesn't want to deal with it. And Tyler, the son, like I said, he's a jock. He's kind of he's got a mean streak in him, as I say. That he keeps wanting to play really mean practical jokes on people at school, kind of the stereotypical picking on the popular kids picking on other people trope. But eventually this presence begins to kind of interact with the family. You get the things that ghosts do. It shakes the drawers, it moves things, it turns the lights on and off. And we get the feeling that there's some sort of connection between this presence and the family, but we're not sure what it is. It seems like Chloe can kind of sense it a little bit more. And you get these cool shots of when the family members are in the room with the presence. They can kind of sense it. They get uneasy. They're not comfortable, and we eventually will find out more about how the family is connected. But that's our setup. I've talked way too long. Zach, what'd you think?
So I kind of liked Presence. I kind of liked it. There's a lot to like here, but also I think there's a lot that people will kind of not be into. For me, it's more an experimental feature. It's more like an exercise in trying something new, especially for Soderbergh, who has not made many features like this. Most of his stuff is like big blockbuster, right? The Ocean's films, Magic Mike. This is like single camera, Steadicam, really simple, big fisheye lens. We're following the family around, and like the best parts of it, I think, are the way the film interacts with the audience, because the audience takes the role of this kind of presence. We have to figure out the motivations behind how we're moving and what we're doing in the house. And also like how people start to notice us, how Chloe, the daughter, starts to see us, how other characters start to like feel like the wind or something, like that 1-to-1 between me sitting in the theater and the events happening in the movie is really cool. But it's not enough, I don't think, to carry like a full feature. And that is evident in the runtime at 85 minutes. Like Soderbergh knows that like it's a little thin, just like a ghost, man. Like it doesn't quite have enough substance to really work. It's creative, and I like the family in it. Like they're a little generic, but in kind of the best way. There's a little nuclear family, and they uniquely have deep problems that are hinted at or kind of explained more in depth to show who their characters are. All that works good, but it ultimately, like it's just a little thin, and I was a little bored through maybe the first 2/3 of it, but it gets going, I think. What did you think of Presence?
I liked it. I dug what it was trying to do. I think I was really on board with the experimental nature of the floating camera aspect. Like I said, I just imagine that Steven Soderbergh, who is his own DP, is just running through this house. Like sometimes the camera moves so fast through different spaces. I was like, man, I don't know how he didn't, fall down the stairs. He's moving so fast, and they did a lot of long takes. He said that sometimes it takes for like 8-10 minutes, and a couple of times he screwed it up because he was like his arms were tired of holding the camera, or he was kind of stumbled up the stairs, and they just had to start the whole thing over. But I dug it. The story kind of almost plays out like a play. It reminds me of the Robert Zemeckis movie Here, except more creative because you get to go through the whole house, not just one single frame. But it's a bit of a family drama. It could work as a stage play. This, like I said, they have problems. The daughter is clearly not coping well with the loss of her friend. The mom doesn't care. The mom's also maybe embezzling or insider trading or something where she might get in some legal trouble, that's hinted at but not fully explored. Like I said, the son is this high achieving jock, but he's also kind of mean, maybe a little bit too mean, that it might be problematic. I was captivated by the family drama, and like I said, then we have the presence as it begins to interact, particularly with Chloe. Chloe seems to be the one who is most open to it. At one point, they meet with a medium who kind of lays out some rules about who can and can't sense it and what it kind of means. And Chloe seems to be, like I said, the most connected to it. And like I said, she has previously lost a good friend of hers.
A quick word on the way this movie's shot before I jump into Chloe, because I do think the characters here are actually a lot of fun. Garrett, a little bit of film history. Garrett Brown is the inventor of the Steadicam, and he's also the head DP on Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. And he does the commentary for The Shining on the 4K. It's really great. If you have the chance, you should listen to it. And he talks about how throughout that whole movie, pretty much anytime it's like a still shot, you would think it's on a tripod. It's usually not. It's usually him holding it. And for most of those scenes that are like 4 minutes, he has to hold it the whole time. And there were a number of times in production where he would break, his arms would get tired, his shoulder would twitch or whatever, and they'd have to redo the whole scene. And Kubrick hated it. And by the time he was done with the production, he was an expert at the Steadicam, and it has gone on to become what it is today, what we know it to be. Soderbergh is doing fundamentally the same thing in this movie. Like the presence, the camera will be moving throughout the house, and then it will just kind of come in and settle on a room. And it'll sit there for 3 or 4 minutes, and it's like a play. Like you're seeing the whole thing play out, right? Like no cuts, no garbage. He said editing was a breeze on this movie because he had dailies and he has edits done every night. Like, all right, I have the movie done. I think it took like a week from when he finished shooting the movie to have it like picture locked and ready to go, because it's like so simple. And I think that's immersive. Like without the cuts, without a lot of like, I don't know, like transitions or anything to really slow you down. Like it does make for a kinetic 1-to-1 to the movie, but there are cuts. There are these long cuts to black that at first are a little much, but as the movie ramps up and as we get going and as that presence starts moving a little faster and as drama starts to introduce, like I do think the energy comes with it and starts to pull you into kind of where the movie's headed. I love the connection Chloe has to this thing. She, like, from when she very first comes into the house, like everybody kind of walks past the presence except her eyes kind of rest roughly in the area of where we are, and you just get this kind of moment where it's like, like it's like they see me, right? Like, and the presence kind of moves to respond to it. It gives it a personality and it gives it a feeling that like feels different and unique and new in a way that like not many movies I think I've seen have done. Like it's thoughtful and it's unique. And I love the way our family is so binary, right? Like mom is all about Tyler, the star child, right? Like he's going to be a swim champion and he's going to be the best and she's an overachiever. And dad, who's quiet and is pushed back and a bit of a beta, he's all about Chloe, the daughter, who is pushed back and quiet. Like the two pairs of them both have these really succinct relationships. And like this works emotionally because the mom and dad fight and Tyler and Chloe fight. And the mom and dad make up and Tyler and Chloe are kind of cool, just like a family, right? And like it's really meaningful, especially when like Chloe's dad comes and sits her down. He's like, hey, I'm here for you and I believe in you and you're going to be great, you know? Like it actually kind of works. It worked on me. I fell under the spell of the presence, I think.
Yeah, I did too. Like I said, I dug what it was doing. I want to talk about the presence itself a little bit. So, like I said, when people first enter the house, uh, some of them can kind of feel it when it's in the room, and it's interesting to see the actors react to that, like you would normally see from the other side, where if you're from the actor's perspective, you would usually be like, they're looking over their shoulder, or they're just kind of looking around the room. It's like the opposite of the Invisible Man, where it would just like the camera would just focus on like empty corners.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's almost seeing it from the opposite perspective. But like I said, eventually we'll see the entity kind of move things around. Like it makes its presence known first to kind of Chloe, and everyone thinks she's crazy because she's depressed still, and then it kind of becomes hard to ignore for everyone. So we have this presence that can kind of interact a little bit with the real world, and kind of has objectives all its own that will be revealed by the end of the film.
There is conflict in the movie. There's drama. There is a resolution. It's not just like you're looking at still images for 90 minutes. There is a whole story happening in Presence, but ultimately, I think it's more fun to just kind of go in and find it out. I think Andy and I have given you a great, floorboard to start at just to get into. It's mostly what you'd see in the trailer. But like, I do think what's here is thoughtful. I do want to talk about why it's boring. Did you find yourself bored at all? Like it can't just be me. Surely you were a little. No, not at all.
I think in the I wanted to, once it got going, like once we hit Act Two, it's great.
Yeah.
The setup
Yes.
is definitely slow. It's taking its time, and there is a lot of you are just from the perspective of the entity going through the whole house. It's like you start downstairs, you open the door, you go through the living room, the kitchen, you circle back around, you go up the stairs, you go into Chloe's room, and you hang out for a while. So there is a lot of just kind of travel time. Maybe he
Yeah.
needed some fast travel.
And I bet you had this too. I found myself forgetting I was watching from the perspective of a presence. Like, because when you're watching it, like there are scenes where it cut back from black and we're just locked on like a table and we're like watching, two family members fight. And then the presence gets up and starts walking away from the table. I'm like, oh God, yeah, I forgot. Like, I'm not just watching like a traditional feature. And like, that stuff's good. It's a bit of a lightning rod. There's a particular character in the middle of the movie who has kind of a sixth sense of sorts, who can kind of feel things out, and you get some really cool moments, like interacting one to one with like the camera from this person, like really generates some energy in the middle of the movie. And then as tensions ramp up and things get more exciting, yeah, things really get going in Act Two. Act Three is pretty good. Overall, it's good. I guess I'm glad it's not like a short film. I'm glad I got to see it in a theater. But boy, it was a really quiet audience who saw Presence with me. Like, not a lot of big laughs, not a lot of big gasps. Like, it's pretty thoughtful sort of feature. And if anything, I could say that I've been disappointed by reviews that said it's like the scariest film. Like, that's not what Presence is doing. It's more like a horror drama, I think. Like, it's not so much a direct scary horror feature, I don't think, right?
Yeah, that was one thing that I was wondering going in. I was like, how is this going to be scary from the point of the thing that scares other people? And it's really not. Like I said, it's a ghost story from a different perspective. It's not like it's not scary. It's not what I would really consider a horror movie. But that's just part of the marketing. It also reminded me a little bit of David Lowery's A Ghost Story, which is kind of a similar thing about a ghost is kind of trapped until it kind of accomplishes something like that happens in so many ghost stories. And we do notice that the presence can, it can float all throughout the house, but it cannot go outside. Like, it cannot cross the threshold of doors or windows. It's definitely stuck. And it also has to, like, it can't just float through walls. It has to follow, like, go through open doors and through hallways and things. So it definitely sets up its own rules, which I think is kind of cool.
Right. It's not fire. It can't like go through anything solid. It's got to be. It's got to wait for things to open. It reminded me of Skinamarink, right? Like 90-minute feature. We're locked in a house. Like we're getting angles and perspectives of people inside of this like dark house with whatever. Like, I don't know. I like Presence. It's not perfect. I don't think I'll be buying the 4K anytime soon. I don't know if it'll make a top 10 of the year for me, but like for what's here, I had a good time. It was something. I don't know. It was different. It didn't really do it for me, but it did it for me. We should get to recommendations. Any other thoughts, Andy?
I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend Presence?
Yeah, I think I would. If you're a horror fan, I would say check it out. If you are interested in something a little bit more experimental, and I think it really works best in theaters. Normally, I would just say, save it for streaming. But I think if you're interested in this, the best place to see it is probably theaters. If you're on the fence, you can go ahead and wait for streaming, but it's just not going to be the same. I think part of the camera effect really works on the really big screen. So overall, I'd recommend.
Yeah, I think I'd recommend it too. Like for horror heads, if you want something a little different, if you were like, yeah, Skinamarink or Long Legs, those are good times. Like something that's a little odd, has a unique energy. Like I think Presence is a good time. If you're looking for something mainstream, maybe not your game, right? Like if you're like a Blumhouse horror fan, like probably not going to get it from Presence. But like I don't know, it's all right. It's divisive. I've seen people say it's really good. I've seen people say it's pretty mid. Like I don't know. I think Presence is good. I think Presence is good. I think Presence is fine. Now, speaking of Presence, it's a terrible segue. We have something new on Off Script. It's not too new because we've done this before. It's the 2025 Oscar nominations. We do Oscar nomination reviews every year, talk about what's coming out. Andy gets up early. He's much more committed than me, and like he's really great at it. And this year we have an incredible analysis for you. But in an effort to be authentic, from podcaster to podcastee, right, from us to you, we want to let you know we pre-recorded this segment, which we've never done before. I don't think we've ever pre-recorded a segment for Off Script, but the reviews dropped Thursday. Well, why did we pre-record, Andy? You could tell people.
So they normally come out on Monday morning, but because of the fires in California and in LA, they delayed them a few days. And so the nominees were announced early Thursday morning. So I got up early and I said to Zach, I was like, I want to record this right away, get our thoughts out there while things are hot and while people are talking about it. And I don't want to wait half a week to discuss. So we recorded on Thursday and we'll be inserting it in this episode.
That's right. We're gonna insert it, which means if you haven't heard it, you're about to. And this is our hot takes from Thursday, which we still feel, and we still very much echo these sentiments that you're about to hear. But we just want to let you know, hey, we're trying something new. Let us know what you think. And if you have the means, if you haven't heard it yet, go check the YouTube channel. It's already up over there. You subscribe over there, you'll get it early, right? You can hear stuff in advance, maybe, depending on how this goes. With that, plenty of further ado, let's jump into it. These are the 2024 Oscar nominations from Thursday. Andy, it's Thursday.
That's right. It is. And we are talking about the Oscar nominees. They just came out today. I got up early at 7 a.m. To hear the announcements. They are announced at 5:30 a.m. in Pacific time, 7:30 a.m. here. Feel bad for anyone who has to actually get up and make the announcements, like our presenters Bowen Yang and Rachel Sennett, because they have to be in full like glam makeup at 5:30 in the morning. But we did. We finally got here. Man, the Oscars it's a crazy thing, and award shows in general are really it's a bizarre thing. And I want to remind the audience that it is not a meritocracy at all. It's kind of a dirty game. All the studios campaign for different features. They put money behind them. They, invite people to different dinners, or that they have the stars show up to different things. There's lots of campaigny things you can do. Timothée Chalamet is going to be the guest musical artist and host for Saturday Night Live this weekend. That's part of his campaign. So there's a lot that goes into it. Sometimes the studios get behind some features more than others, and people kind of seem confused by that sometimes. But the nominees are here, and we're ready to talk about them. Zach, any thoughts before we jump in?
Yeah, I think people after the Golden Globes have been talking a lot about this movie, Emilia Pérez, which we reviewed on the show, which is a fine movie. I think Emilia Pérez is fine. I don't know if it's deserving of the flowers it's getting, and I'm really surprised at the backlash from people who don't like it and are really upset at it. But it's important to remember that this is a business. We've covered a lot of Oscars in the past. We've been doing this show for a while now. And like, we're always surprised at some of the things that come out. We're surprised at people who don't get nominations, who should. We're surprised at people who we didn't think were going to be recognized that were. 13 noms seems like a lot, but like, I've seen a lot of people come and go and walk away with nothing that got nominated. I've seen people get nominated, win everything they were going to get. Just because Emilia Pérez is leading the charge does not mean it is time to hit the panic button on cinema. It's fine. I'm excited to talk about what's here, though, because there's some real winners. There's some quality snubs. We'll talk about Emilia Pérez at the end, I think.
Yeah, like I said, there's I think my overall impression is most things that we thought would get nominated did. There hasn't really been any surprises. I think some of the snubs are and aren't surprising there. We'll get into that. But why don't we start with Best Picture?
Yeah, best picture. First one is, I got it right here on screen for you watching on YouTube. 10 noms this year. Nominees are Emilia Pérez, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Wicked, Anora, The Substance, Dune Part 2, Nickel Boys, and I'm Still Here. We have seen all but two of these on the pod. You haven't seen I'm Still Here, right, Andy?
I have not.
I have not seen it either. Yeah, and we also haven't seen Nickel Boys. Of what's here, are we giving what we think is going to win, or are we just talking about general? Where you at?
Yeah, I mean both. I think the Brutalist is definitely a top contender. This list that we're looking at now is actually ranked by who they think is going to win. Emilia Pérez has a lot of steam right now with the most options, but I think something more like the Brutalist or Conclave is farther up there. Also, there's also the whole category of just, it's an honor to be nominated, and that's where we would find things like Wicked or A Complete Unknown. The Substance showing up on here, which is cool. The Substance ended up getting 5 nominations, which we'll get into. Dune Part 2 showing up here, which did miss for Best Director. We'll talk about that more as well. I'm Still Here is a Brazilian film, which I don't know anything about, but I've heard has a really good performance by Fernanda Torres. And Nickel Boys is it's a story about a school, like a boarding school in the 50s, where there was lots of like abuse and murders of students who were there, but it's apparently also very uplifting. I'm not sure if I'm going to get around to that.
Yeah, all right. I'm surprised to see Substance make an appearance. Like, I love that movie; it was my favorite film of the year. But seeing it on this size stage is surprising because it's such an eye-popping feature. You know what I mean? And we'll talk about Demi Moore in a minute when we get down to her too. How's Best Director looking?
So we have Brady Corbet for The Brutalist, Jacques Audiard for Emilia Pérez, James Mangold for A Complete Unknown, Sean Baker for Nora, and Coralie Farjah for The Substance. Again, huge for Coralie Farjah getting a nominee here. The only woman this year to get one. She's only the 9th woman to be nominated for Best Director in the 80, 90 something years of the Oscars. So a lot of work to be done there. I think Brady Corbet might be the front runner here. Anora's isn't the kind of movie that the Academy likes to get behind. It's just a subject matter. It's about a sex worker. There's lots of really explicit scenes. The Academy tends to be more conservative. The Brutalist is definitely the kind of movie that will stand the test of time, and that you can kind of look back on, that they want to look back on fondly. So that would probably be my pick.
Yeah, I'd love to see Sean Baker get it. I don't know though. I think he's got a long career in front of him. I think a lot of people in the Academy recognize that. Like, he'll make other stuff that's more like what we like. We'll sit on it. Honora did just get in Criterion though, worth mentioning. Would love to see Coralie Farjah get it. She's a bit of dark horse. Best actor noms are Timothée Chalamet for A Complete Unknown, Adrien Brody for The Brutalist, Ralph Fiennes for Conclave, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, and Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice. Kind of a fascinating list. Adrien Brody was previously the youngest Best Actor winner with The Pianist, right? And it's cool to see him on here again for The Brutalist alongside Chalamet, who I think would unseat him as the youngest winner if he were to win. We do have him on the front of this list here, but I'm not so sure. Ralph Fiennes had an incredible performance in Conclave, though I heard that apparently they weren't campaigning a lot because he's just not really into that. So I don't know exactly how the money moves around there, but if it moves as they say, then he may not be the winner. Coleman Domingo, we love to death, and I haven't seen Sing Sing yet. Hopefully I can get that to an A24 theater. A24 can get that to a theater near me soon. And then Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice. Deserves his flowers, man. He could not get on a Hollywood, like a Variety Actors on Actors interview for this movie. He didn't get a lot of attention. I don't know, like recently for The Apprentice, and we saw it, and he's super good in it, dude. Like, he plays a really great young Donald Trump, surprisingly. And I'm glad to see him get a nom here. I don't think he'll win it. I'm thinking it's going to Chalamet. Who do you got?
Yeah, I was really surprised to see Sebastian Stan, and I'm glad because he definitely deserves it. A snub in this category might be Daniel Craig for Queer. A lot of people thought he might get get one. Usually, how the awards work, the top 2 or 3 spots are a lock, and then it's a toss up on kind of positions 4 and 5. I think Timothée Chalamet is definitely the front runner. He is some trivia. He is the youngest person since James Dean to have been nominated twice for an Oscar. He turns 30 in a few months. Coleman Domingos is the first person since Denzel Washington to be nominated. I think he's the first black actor to be nominated back-to-back years. He was nominated last year for Rustin. I think it's definitely between Timothée Chalamet and Adrian Brody. And if I had to pick Timmy's on the come up. He's set to be a star. He's like the DiCaprio of Gen Z, and I think that's who you vote for at the Academy, because that's who you want to highlight and you want to see their career continue to blossom.
Yeah, and there's this like spiritual handoff, like from one to the other. When you see the two of them at the top of the noms list, you're like, hey, he won before. This guy's on the come up. He does like 3-minute songs in Complete Unknown where he sings and plays guitar in one take live. It's like, he's super good. Like it's crazy.
In Best Actress, we have Demi Moore for The Substance, Mikey Madison for Anora, Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Pérez, Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. That's that Brazilian film. Cynthia Erivo for Wicked. So Demi Moore is the front runner here, and it's looking like she just might take this home. In a way, an apology for her career, which was kind of tanked in the 90s. She was more or less punished for not becoming Julia Roberts, or Julia Roberts style, kind of like, we just want you to be pretty and do, rom-coms and stuff. She did very challenging roles, things like Not All the President's Men, A Few Good Men, and G.I. Jane. In G.I. Jane, she becomes a Navy SEAL, and she famously shaved her head. It's a really intense role and like no recognition. So I think Demi Moore is probably the top there. Mikey Madison, she's where Timothée Chalamet was 7 years ago when he first got nominated. It's like, okay, you're on the board. Now you got to prove yourself a few more times before you win the award. And nice to see Cynthia Erivo on here. I didn't know how much love Wicked would or wouldn't get, because it's one of those things that, like, well, you were super successful, that's your reward. But Wicked did get a lot of nominees, including Cynthia Erivo for Best Actress.
Yeah, really hoping Demi Moore gets it on this one. Everybody else is fantastic, but dude, like Substance, she leaves it all out on the field, dude. She's kind of the perfect actress for it, and it's incredible and weird and gross and fun. I really hope she scoops it. Best Supporting Actor. Big category for Succession heads out there. We've got Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice, Guy Pearce for The Brutalist, Edward Norton for A Complete Unknown, and Yura Borisov for Anora. Kieran Culkin and Jeremy Strong are brothers on the show Succession, HBO show, right? And they both got nominated for Golden Globes for these appearances. Kieran won, Jeremy lost. Now again, they are going toe-to-toe at the Oscars. They are both incredible. Personally, if I had to pick one of these, it's Jeremy Strong, dude. Like, he gets lost in Roy Cohn. He's amazing. He's like got this suntan, and he's stiff, and he talks funny, but other people are weak. Kieran Culkin is great in Real Pain, but he just feels so much like an extension of himself. Like, Strong is doing something else, but I don't know if that'll get through to Oscar voters, right? Guy Pearce in Brutalist is so good, dude. I love a Guy Pearce villain. Not like Iron Man 3 Guy Pearce villain, like Count of Monte Cristo Guy Pearce villain, you know what I mean? Like, and he's fantastic as Van Buren in The Brutalist. Edward Norton in Complete Unknown is great. Love Pete Seeger. Still down home, y'all. Just playing folk music. And Yura Borisov in Anora is a breakout. But I also think he's like a first-timer breakout, you know what I mean? And those are hard to get up to the top. That doesn't always happen. It happens sometimes, but maybe not this year. It's a pretty stacked category. Who do you think, Andy?
I'm thinking it's going to Kieran Culkin, mostly because that movie will just resonate with voters. I think more The Apprentice has been kryptonite. No one wants to go near it. So I don't see people voting for that. A lot of people just don't flat out want to watch it. And newsflash, most of the Academy Award voters do not watch every film. A lot of times they just vote for names and vote for buzz. It's like, it's a lot to do, and that's just how it goes. So I think it's going to Kieran Culkin. Nice to see Guy Pearce and Edward Norton on here. We said they had excellent performances, and yeah, Yuri Borisov is a standout from the breakout from Anora, and it's an honor just to be nominated. Not winning, but happy to be there. Best supporting actress, we have Zoe Saldana for Emilia Pérez, Ariana Grande for Wicked, Isabella Rossellini for Conclave. Her first nomination, which is unbelievable. Felicity Jones for The Brutalist and Monica Barbaro for A Complete Unknown. Zoe Saldana at the top here. It could be, but I'm not sure. Ariana Grande, who knows? Wicked could come away with it. Like I said, Isabella Rossellini, who I actually just watched also in David Lynch's Blue Velvet from almost 40 years ago. She's not in that movie very much. She's only in Conclave about 4 minutes, so I don't think that she's the one either. Monica Barbaro was kind of not a surprise, but someone that was nice to see turned up here. This also could have gone to Margaret Qualley for The Substance. It's equally deserved here. And also Felicity Jones, who a lot of people thought wouldn't get nominated because she's in the second half of The Brutalist, and a lot of people thought the voters just wouldn't get around to watching that, but it was nice to see them on here. And that's what I mean. These are good lists. Like, there's no one on here that really doesn't belong to be. Zach, what do you think?
I personally, I think my dark horse is Zoe Saldana, and I'll tell you why. It's partly for Emilia Pérez, but these are career awards. Like, dude, she has done so much great work for across Marvel and Disney and Avatar, and like, she is a person who puts on face paint and CGI dots, and you lose her in the performance, and she so often doesn't get her flowers for it. That there's a weird part of me that's like, when she does Emilia Pérez in the first half of the movie, she's like in poverty and like has nothing, and her eyebrows look terrible. It's like a struggle. And then in the second half, she's like got her act together, and she's beautiful, and she's singing and dancing. All of that comes from her. Like, and I think she is the best part of that movie. I really do. And I love Ariana Grande. If she doesn't get it, I hope it's Grande for sure. But there's a weird part of me. It's like, maybe Saldana deserves it. Like, maybe she's finally got here. I don't know, but dude, Ariana Grande is incredible in Wicked.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Real quick, I agree with that. That like a lot of it, the Oscars are career awards, and Zoe Saldana has been in some of the most successful franchises in history, both Marvel and Avatar. And she sings, she dances, she speaks Spanish, she does it all. Ariana Grande might have to prove herself a few more times.
Right, like she's great. And she's so funny as Glinda. Like, respect. It's a good list. But yeah, there's a weird part of me that's like, if anything wins from Emilia Pérez, I almost do hope it's Zoe Saldana. Like, because I really think she's a talent. Best adapted screenplay. We got 5 here. Conclave, Emilia Pérez, A Complete Unknown, Nickel Boys, and Sing Sing. Still have not seen Sing Sing or Nickel Boys. Boy, Conclave feels like it did not get enough noms for how cool that movie is. And it got a lot of noms, so that's a big ask. Mostly I'm upset about cinematography, but if I'm going to give it to an adapted screenplay, it's a hot contender, baby. It's a good adult movie about adults talking in rooms, you know what I mean? It's great. 2 hours of thrilling drama of dudes just talking to each other. I actually like Conclave a lot. I would say that one.
I agree. I think Conclave is probably a lock for this. The screenplay awards are a lot of times where you can kind of toss someone a bone, where it's like, well, you're probably not going to win the other big awards, but we can be recognized in screenplay. Some notable absences: Dune 2 again. Dune not getting the love, and I'll say Warner Brothers did not campaign for Dune because largely in part because there's going to be a third one, and that's when they might reward Denis for the entire series at that point. Best original screenplay, we have Honora, written by Sean Baker, The Brutalist, written by Brady Corbet and Mona Fastvold, The Substance by Coralie Farjah, who we all know and love, A Real Pain, written and directed by Jesse Eisenberg, and September 5th, a film that we have not talked a lot about and hasn't been available to watch, about the 1972 Berlin Olympics terrorist attacks. Honora's, I mean, that's an incredible writing thing, but again, it matters, does the Academy want to get behind that kind of film? I would love for Coralie Farjah to get this as well. That would be my favorite, but we'll see.
Yeah, I would be really surprised if, I don't know. I'm surprised The Substance is like mid on this list, because I think the screenplay for Substance is so interesting, and like from screenshots of like the actual screenplay, they did like wild treatments with the text. I'm not saying that wins screenplay, but I'm just saying that movie comes off the page in a way that everything else does in a big way, but for some reason, I don't know, dude. I think Substance is great. I hope Substance takes it. I think I'm going to jump the line a little bit. I want to hit Best Animated Feature. mostly because I haven't seen most of the international features or the documentaries. So I'm just going
Yeah,
to
same.
zip right on. Best animated nominees are The Wild Robot out of DreamWorks, Inside Out 2 from Disney Pixar, Flow from Sideshow Janu, Memoir of a Snail from IFC, and Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul. Listen, we just talked Wallace and Gromit last week, and I love that movie. It's probably going to Wild Robot, dude. Wild Robot's really good and uniquely a beautiful film. Fantastic art style based on a book. Inside Out 2 made a ton of money, and that's huge for Disney Pixar, but come on. Is the Oscars we're talking about. They don't do sequels. You see what happened to Dune 2 this year? They don't do that. Flow, I hear, is really a banger. Bill Hader said it was his favorite animated film of the year, so I should check it out simply on Bill Hader's recommendations. I haven't seen Memoir of a Snail. And I do like that Wallace and Gromit, but, dude, I feel like stop motion always gets crushed by the animated, right? It's just a different beast. Stop motion and computer animation are just like so different, and I know they compete together. It's fine. What do you think, Andy?
I'm just glad we didn't see something like Moana 2 or Mufasa 2 on here. I'm glad those were like Disney frozen out largely. I think The Wild Robot will probably take it. That was on my top 10 list. Love that movie. Love the score. Inside Out 2 to me was just kind of okay. It's a little mediocre. And again, it made over $1 billion. Like that's your reward there. Heard really great things about Flow, a film out of Latvia of all places. Probably like their only that's been kind of making a lot of news. Jumping down to some below the line awards: Best Cinematography, The Brutalist, Emilia Pérez, Dune Part 2, Nosferatu, which got 4 nominees, and the Maria Callas biopic on Netflix, which we have not watched. Man, this is tough. I would have to go to Dune Part 2 just because I love that movie. And I think that's probably where Dune will probably clean up, is in the technical awards.
Brutal snub for Conclave in here. Edward Berger's film is beautiful. There's some shots in that are genuinely stunning. One of the few films I actually bothered to like find screenshots and tweet, and it was easy to do, to find 4 good looking screenshots of Conclave. There's a lot of them in there. But dude, we saw Brutalist in IMAX, and it's amazing, particularly because of its VistaVision presentation. Like, they literally run the film through the camera sideways instead of vertical. I know that doesn't sound that weird, but it is, dude. Like, they are shooting in a different format and presenting on large format screens in a new aspect ratio. Like, there's just a lot going on in Brutalist that's really cool. So I do like it a lot. If it's not Brutalist, I do hope it's Dune Part 2, dude. That movie deserves some flowers. Good God. It can't get enough W's in here. Like, Warner Brothers gave it nothing. Costume design, a quick one. Wicked, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Nosferatu, and Gladiator 2. Probably Wicked, right? Probably Wicked. Like, I think it's going to have to be Wicked with the bullet. I know it's based on a Broadway play. Obviously, they can pull a lot from that. But also, there's like dozens of extras in that movie, man. Like hundreds at one point. Like, they go to the Emerald City. There's a lot going on in Wicked. I think it might have to be Wicked. Everything else is good. Wicked's really good. Also, Nosferatu. Glad to see them made an appearance, right? Love that.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the categories where you can toss someone a bone, so Wicked can get something where it's not going to get probably either the acting awards or Wicked was not nominated for Best Director, John M. Chu. It's kind of a snub. So this would be a good place for them to win in Best Costume Design. Moving on to Best Film Editing: Anora, Emilia Pérez, Wicked, Conclave, The Brutalist. I'm surprised that Conclave isn't higher up on this list. I really don't. I couldn't say Zachy. I think you'll have to speak more for this. I feel like it could kind of go to anyone.
Yeah, I actually really liked the way they play with shadow and darkness in Emilia Pérez, because it's not a very high budget feature, and they shoot a lot of those musical numbers in like extreme shadow, and they look great. But that's a lot of cinematography and maybe not so much editing. The funny thing about Anora, because that's the front runner on the list we're looking at here, I can't think of any other film like that pulled an audience as big as Anora did the night I saw it and left everybody just completely silent when it hit credits. Like chillingly silent. And that feeling that comes over you when you watch that movie, the laughs and the thrills and the scares and the love and the everything, all of that comes from editing. Like the pace and the structure that makes you like truly feel an emotion when you watch a film. It's secretly editing. That's the reason it works. Like that's the thing that comes out. Those small decisions that make you like elicit a feeling from your audience. And like, I don't know if any of them did it on this list like Anora did. So it might be Anora, although Brutalist did have an intermission, and I'm pro intermission. And I do think that's worth celebrating. I don't think it's going to take it. Makeup and hairstyling is a quick one. Emilia Pérez, The Substance, A Different Man, Nosferatu, and Wicked. We actually watched A Different Man for this episode. And when Andy and I are recording
We
this,
will
haven't
have
talked
watched
about
it,
yet,
yes.
but we will have talked about it. Yes. So we'll get to that in a second, I think. Incredible makeup work in Different Man for a movie that otherwise seems to show the edges of its budget often in its sets and its simple cuts. Like, I do think the makeup works fantastic, but Emilia Perez is really good, dude. Like, the choice to have Carlos Sofia Gascon presenting as this like big brutish monster in the first third makes the pivot like in the second half so much stronger and visually affecting, and it works so great because of her identity as an actress. And then like if it's not Emilia Perez, like Substance is a banger, dude. Substance is come on, dude. Demi Moore looks great. She plays 10 years younger, and you can't even tell. Margaret Qualley's incredible. Like, it's great.
Man, my pick would be The Substance for sure. Demi Moore sat in that makeup chair for like 9 hours to get ready on some of those days, and like that's extreme. And even if when you're like rich and famous, getting paid millions of dollars, it's still like sitting in a makeup chair for 9 hours is just grueling. And when she tells that story to other actors, the other actors are like horrified because they're like, I could never do that. Like, it's half the day. Best original score, The Wild Robot, Emilia Pérez, The Brutalist, Conclave, and Wicked. I think I actually added all of these to my playlist except for Emilia Pérez. The Wild Robot's got a great score, but of this, I would think either The Brutalist or Conclave. This was a big snub for Challengers. Challengers got no nominees, and a lot of people thought it would get in Best Original Score. Nothing for Challengers. But of this list, I want to say either Conclave or The Brutalist.
Yeah, I am really surprised Challengers isn't on here. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross pulled out an absolute banger score. But dude, I saw Brutalist a couple weeks ago. Get the hell out of its way. It's The Brutalist by a nose, by a country mile. The Brutalist, like, dude, the Brutalist score rocks. I've listened to it like twice since I saw it. Like, it is a wall to wall banger. Put it on the playlist. You can work to it. You can hang out to it. Like, the Brutalist score is awesome. Would recommend. Gonna skip Best Original Song and jump into Production Design. Nominees are The Brutalist, Wicked, Conclave, Dune Part 2, and Nosferatu. The rare Dune Part 2 nom. Oh boy, we get another one on here. And we should, by the way, because the Sands of Arrakis don't production design themselves. I like The Brutalist on here. I really do. I know it's a cheap feature. Dude, the spaces in The Brutalist are kind of incredible. Laszlo Tote's like eye for design comes out in that film and comes off the page in a way that like is incredible, and like so much of that is Judy Becker's hard work in like designing this library and this space. Like, fantastic. Like, so it might have to be The Brutalist by a nose. I know Wicked is great. I know Wicked has a lot of cool stuff going on in it. Conclave redesigns the Vatican. Dune Part 2 takes us to another world, and Nosferatu takes us back. It is a great year in production design, dude. Like, it is a stacked... Any one of them could win. Nosferatu could win for all I know. But, like, if I had to give one, I would say I think The Brutalist should take it.
The Brutalist definitely has some incredible vistas. There's a section in the film where they go to Italy to pick out marble, and they're in this giant marble quarry for a large section of the film. It's just incredible views of just architecture and work, and yeah, I could see that winning. But again, this is except for Wicked. The rest of these are so much more inventive. I think. I mean, I can see Conclave winning this as well. Jumping down to Best Sound, which used to be 2 categories. It's just now 1. Wicked, Emilia Pérez, A Complete Unknown, The Wild Robot, Dune Part 2. Man, I hate seeing Dune Part 2 at the bottom of this list because there's great sound design in that. A Complete Unknown. It's a musical biopic. There's lots of music production in that as well. My pick would be Dune Part 2. Wicked is at the top of this list, so who knows? This is a forecasted list, and a lot can happen between now and awards night.
Yeah, Best Sound is fine this year. The sneaky one that missed that I feel like would have had it if it was on here was Substance, because some of the sounds in that movie are like bonkers gross, dude. Like, dude, everybody talks about Dennis Quaid eating shrimp in like the first 10 minutes of that movie. Like, it's wildly affecting, and it's gross, dude. And like, but also I know the Academy's not going to go for gross. That's fine. I guess Wicked for best sound. I don't remember being particularly charmed by the sound in Wicked. You know what I mean? I like the movies I was charmed by sound in is stuff like Longlegs, which definitely didn't get a nom on here, not a single one.
Yeah.
So like they're all fine, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It could go any direction. Maybe Complete Unknown for their live mixing. Like I guess that's pretty impressive. I don't know. One more. Best visual effects. Nominees are Dune Part 2, Wicked, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Better Man, and Alien Romulus. Yes, I was just talking about before we recorded. Academy Award nominated feature, Alien Romulus. They finally made it. Who'd have known? Fede Alvarez. Dune Part 2 is the front runner on here. I kind of think it should be. I kind of think it should be the front runner. Like Dune Part 2's visuals are incredible, and I don't think it got enough credit on here. And like, if anything, I think it might be it. Wicked looks great, but dude, so many people dunked on the color in that movie and how it looks washed out and gray, and they don't get the pink right. Like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes had that whole re-release where they have the whole movie like without VFX, which is nuts. Like, and may deserve its own award and its own space. But as for the film proper, I don't know. Like, and then Better Man is like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, but less apes, right? It's just the one ape. And it's like, I'm sure Michael Gracie, again, I'm sure it's a great movie. I have not seen it. I need to give space to Better Man. But from what I know, like, I don't think it's going to do better than the other movie with more apes, right? And then Alien Romulus is like, get out of here. All right. Like, there's a lot of good production design in Alien Romulus, but there's one effect in particular that's getting this award, and everybody knows that effect sucked. We all saw it, and it didn't work in the movie theater. They shouldn't have done it. You all know what I'm talking about. We're going to move past it. Andy, what do you think on visual effects?
I mean, Dune Part 2 is definitely taking this. I think Dune Part 1 won it last time. Nice to see things. Again, this is where you can get a little bit more varied in the category. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Less apes are never going to win over more apes. So I'm surprised that Better Man is on here at all. And Alien Romulus, yeah, who knew that was kind of a surprise. Could have gone a number of different ways, but Dune Part 2 is definitely taking it.
So really quick, because I know we also want to talk about the Razzies, and we spent way too long on this list, like we normally do with all our noms lists. It's fine. This is our awards coverage. It's thorough and specific on Off Script Film Review. General impressions of the year, like what do you think? Like Dune doesn't get a lot of attention. Emilia Pérez gets a lot of attention. Where you at?
Yeah, I mean, Emilia Pérez has been surprising to a lot of people. I mean, I thought that movie was fine. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible like a lot of people think, but I think it's good. I don't think it's great. Also, there's a certain recency bias. Dune came out in the spring. Challengers came out in the spring, and so people just kind of forget about those. And also, certain campaigns go behind different films, and there's also this whole thing of like, well, we want to highlight the smaller, lesser known films and filmmakers, and not the big blockbusters, which Dune Part 2 kind of falls into. It was a $700 million successful film. So the snubs, like I said, are things like Luca Guadagnino not getting any nominations for two of his films that came out. Challengers getting snubbed in all categories, especially original score. Daniel Craig not getting nominated. Some other acting nominations, but like I said, it's like it could have gone one way or another, and it would have been equally deserving. So I think it's a good year. It's some years it's like truly baffling.
Yeah, I think overall it's a pretty good year at the Oscars. I know there's a lot of people who seem pretty mad about Emilia Pérez, but like, dude, again, we've had films get multiple noms in the past and win nothing. Like 13 noms does not mean you're getting 13 awards. It could, but the odds are pretty slim. Like you may get a few. I doubt it's picking up more than a handful. I would be surprised. Even with all the attention on here, like I just feel like in individual categories it gets beat like by each, I don't know, by each little metric. It's this movie does this a little better than that. That movie does this a little bit better than this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Then again, I also thought The Substance was the best, and that certainly didn't get the most awards. So what do I know? Real quick, we should talk about the Razzies, and then we got to get to our other review for sure. I know we spent too much time on this, but it's fine. We're trying something new. So Razzie noms 2025. What do you know about them?
Again, so these are always rewarding the worst films of the year, and it's always kind of tongue-in-cheek. So I'll start with Worst Picture, which our nominees are Borderlands, Joker Folie à Deux, Madam Web, Megalopolis, and Reagan. And these have a little bit of a blurb next to them. It's always a really funny list. Joker Folie à Deux doesn't deserve to be on here, but Madam Web definitely does. And I'm surprised Kraven the Hunter isn't also on this list.
If anything wins it, secretly I hope it's Megalopolis. Why not? Because they're not going to win Best Picture at the, so you might as well hand it Worst Picture. Like, sure, just give it a Razzie. I'm fine with that. Give it its flowers somehow. Like, but the one that probably should is Borderlands. As one of those movies that you and I were like, there's no way, dude. Like, sometimes you just got to go see bad movies for the love of the game. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just got to go check out like a bad movie because it's just going to the movies. But like, Borderlands wasn't it. So if I had to give it to one, I'd probably say Borderlands is the worst picture of the year. Actor, we got Jack Black for Dear Santa, Zachary Levi for Harold and the Purple Crayon, Joaquin Phoenix for Joker for Leonardo, Dennis Quaid for Reagan, and Jerry Seinfeld for Unfrosted. I just see Seinfeld on here. That's great. He's a classically bad actor, dude. Like if you rewatch old Seinfeld, you can see him breaking all the time in the background. Like he can barely keep it together. My man's hardly acting. He's just standing around and saying lines. But also Zachary Levi caught a lot of heat for Purple Crayon, man. Heard it was real bad. So I don't know. Maybe him. I don't know about Dennis Quaid as Reagan. He might be bad, but he couldn't be that bad, right?
Yeah. Joaquin Phoenix, it's funny to see him on here because he won the Oscar for the first time he played the Joker, and then this time he's on the opposite end of that. Worst actress, we have Cate Blanchett for Borderlands, Lady Gaga for Joker Folie à Deux, Bryce Dallas Howard for Argyle. Remember Argyle? That came out this year.
Oh, God, yeah.
Dakota Johnson for Madam Web, Jennifer Lopez for Atlas. I would have to go with Dakota Johnson for Madam Web. She so does not want to be in that movie at all.
Yeah, I think you're right, dude. She seems to know exactly what movie she's in, and she so doesn't like it. But she's getting that paycheck. That's what's important. Supporting actor for Jack Black for Voice Only in Borderlands, Kevin Hart in Borderlands, Shia LaBeouf in drag in Megalopolis, Tahar Rahim for Madam Web, and John Voight for Megalopolis, Reagan, and Shadowland and Strangers.
3 movies,
3 or 4 films. Good God. I don't know. First off, it's got to be one of the Megalopolis boys for sure. Like I couldn't tell you which. They're both unique in that film. I have been dying over the John Voight like look at this big boner I got line since I saw that movie in a way that like nothing else has stuck with me like that.
Oh my
like,
God,
pure brain rot. So it might be Voight. Might be Voight by a nose.
Yeah, I would say either of those Borderlands guys for me. Supporting actress, we have Ariana DeBose for Argyle and Kraven the Hunter. Oh, that's Oscar winner Ariana DeBose, who won for West Side Story a few years ago. Leslie Ann Down as Margaret Thatcher in Reagan. Emma Roberts for Madam Web, she's hardly in that. Amy Schumer for Unfrosted, and FKA Twigs for The Crow.
Aww.
I feel bad for Ariana. I feel bad for Ariana DeBose because she's in had a bunch of mediocre movies since her Oscar win. That's hard to say. Like I said, Emma Roberts is hardly in that.
Yeah, FKA Twigs is like punching down on a new kid. Like, oh come on, like yeah, she's not that good, but like she's not supposed to be that. Like, okay, all right, that's yeah. I don't know, dude. If I was trying to be funny, if I was the Razzies and trying to pick who I thought was the funniest answer, it's Ariana DeBose. I don't think she's that bad, though. Also, I'd completely forgotten about Argyle. I signed up for Apple TV the other day to watch Severance Season 2 and saw it on there on the front page. And was like, oh my God, you guys are advertising this. Like, it's a good watch. Crazy. Director, S.J. Clarkson for Madam Web, Francis Ford Coppola for Megalopolis, Todd Phillips for Joker Folie à Deux, Eli Roth for Borderlands, or Jerry Seinfeld for Unfrosted. I got that Megalopolis bias, man. I can't help it. Like, I can't help it, I gotta tell you. What do you do when you're making a bomb and you know it? You say, I'm making it anyway, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, how could you not give it to him? Then again, Todd Phillips for Joker Folie à Deux is tempting because, like, what was he doing with that movie? Like, he had to have known the whole way down, right? Like, maybe he didn't. I don't know. Could have been artful bliss. What do you think, Andy?
I think probably for me it's S.J. Clarkson for Madam Web because Madam Web I think is truly atrocious, even worse than Megalopolis. Like Megalopolis is a huge swing and kind of a brilliant disaster. Madam Web is just bad from beginning to end. Worst on-screen combo. This is a fun category they have. They said any 2 obnoxious characters from Borderlands, any 2 unfunny comedic actors from Unfrosted, the entire cast of Megalopolis, Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga for Joker Folie à Deux, and Dennis Quaid and Penelope Ann Miller. These are always so funny. I got to say, the entire cast of Megalopolis is really funny.
Come on. How is it not the entire cast of Megalopolis? Wall to wall bad, right? Like give them their flowers. That's just me. Prequel, remake, ripoff, or sequel goes to The Crow, Joker Folie à Deux, Craven the Hunter, Mufasa the Lion King, or Rebel Moon 2, The Scargiver. The rare Rebel Moon 2 appearance on the Razzies list this year. Hard to say that's not it. I mean, it's so far down here you nearly forgot about it. Or you forgot about Rebel Moon Part 1, right? If I had to give it to one, it's Mufasa, baby. Who asked for it? I don't care that it made $1 billion. What's the big idea? Who do you think you are? I am. Yeah, that's it for me.
This is a funny category. Yeah, because most of these are actually misfires. Like The Crow is just it's trying, it's not getting there. Joker 2 not hitting. Craven the Hunter, it had some good things, but mostly a miss. Mufasa, I've heard it's just real mediocre. I would give it to Rebel Moon 2, The Scargiver, because no one saw that, and it was like, it's part of this big Zack Snyder thing. It's on Netflix. No one watched it. And finally, our last category, worst screenplay, Joker Folie à Deux, Craven the Hunter, Madam Web, Megalopolis, or Reagan. Again, my heart in all of these is Madam Web, so that's who I would give it to.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd hand it to Megalopolis here. I think the screenplay actually, I think the screenplay to Megalopolis had a little bit of merit, and I mean that, all right? There's something to it. Probably Madam Web. Come on. I mean, it's just clunky the whole way down. Razzies, Oscars. What a segment, Andy. Just like always, we took too long on this thing, but I love talking about it, and that's what's
we love being thorough.
I mean, looking forward to 2026, you feel like you're seeing anything coming out that's going to top these numbers? Is Wicked 2 going to take the place of Wicked 1, or is it doomed in the sequel whatever? What do you think?
I mean, it's all the big stuff. Yes, like you said, Wicked Part 2 for good. Avatar 3 comes out this year. That'll be big. Superman. We'll see if any of the Marvel stuff. The film festivals are starting now, and then they'll continue into the spring. And when we get to Cannes, that's when the big stuff was, because Anora and The Substance premiered there. Anora won the Palme d'Or, the top prize. The Substance won Best Screenplay. So we kind of have to wait till May to kind of get a better idea of what some of our best picture contenders are going to be.
We will be covering the Oscars when they air, like we always do. Shout out to Dr. Draper for getting up early, and watching them. I did not get up early. I probably should. Maybe next year. Maybe I'll suit up. But that's it. That's the Oscar noms for 2025. We've reviewed them. We're here, and now we're there, and that's the whole thing. Back to our regularly scheduled programming, I think. Also, subscribe to Off Script Film Review on your favorite platform. It's important to plug things. Yeah. That's the game. Andy, any hot takes?
So there's a little under 40 days until the actual show, which is on Sunday, March 7th and March 2nd. Sorry. So that's when we'll find out who the winners are.
I love it. Stay tuned. One more review to talk about. Well, hold on. Should thank ourselves, I think, for all our hard work on Thursday. Probably. Hey, Andy, you did a great job. Boy, what a great segment, huh?
Thanks. I try and do a lot of research. It'll be interesting to see who comes out on top. There's still almost about a month and a half worth of campaigning to do. We just saw Timmy on SNL this weekend, both as guest host and musical guest, which was pretty incredible to see. So lots of campaigning, lots of smear campaigns to come out, I'm sure, as well. So we'll see what it looks like on March 2nd.
My gosh, anything could happen. I think our picks are pretty good, though. I'm going to be honest. I feel pretty confident about them. They felt good then, and they feel good now. With that, I should talk about our final film of the episode. We got to get to it. I'm going to be taking the summary on this one, so please excuse any clumsy delivery. This is A Different Man. So, A Different Man is the story of Edward, a struggling actor with neurofibromatosis that manifests as a disfiguring facial condition. Shout out to IMDb for helping me out with this, by the way. There's a lot of words in here. Edward is an aspiring actor, but obviously with a large facial disfiguration, he's maybe not having the attention and success he's looking for, and he's rather closed off until he meets a very kind neighbor across the way named, I have her name right here, here, Ingrid. Ingrid totally sees Edward for the person he is and gives him attention in a way that he doesn't often feel. One day, Edward is in his apartment. An accident happens, and he ends up going to the hospital and becoming a part of this experiment to test out a new gene editing medication that might be able to help with his condition. And before you know it, bing, bang, boom, Edward looks exactly like Sebastian Stan. Through some horrifying effects, basically his additional skin peels away, and the man underneath is Sebastian Stan. We jump to a few years later, and Edward is now Guy. He's the same person, but he is acting like a totally different man. No pun intended. He tells everybody that Edward is dead, that is not a person anymore, and that Guy is the only person who's here. He's confident, he's successful at work, and he runs into Ingrid one day, his old neighbor, right, who thinks that Edward is dead, had died in an accident, and realizes that she's hosting a play about their life in the apartment, right? How she met this guy named Edward, and she's going to have two actors playing the two of them, and this relationship they kind of developed, and he wants to play himself since he was an actor as Edward. So Guy tries out, gets the role of Edward, and everything's going good, and he's getting his relationship back with Ingrid until Oswald walks into the room. Oswald, played by Adam Pearson, a man who has neurofibromatosis and has a very similar look that Edward had at the beginning of the feature. This is a real person. Adam Pearson really has this in real life. This is not a makeup effect. He meets Guy and Ingrid. Ingrid immediately falls for him and thinks he's amazing. He ends up taking Guy's role in the play. Guy cannot handle the fact that he is being upstaged by somebody who has the thing that he used to have, and it creates a lot of drama in a very interesting movie called A Different Man. I've talked way too much about this. Andy, what'd you think?
So interestingly enough, I started this movie and I watched about 10 minutes of it, and I was really distracted, and I just stopped because I was like, I'm not into this. I'm going to watch it a different time. And this time around, I actually watched the whole thing, and I really enjoyed it. I was surprised how much I did. I'd heard a lot about it. I heard great acting from both Adam Pearson and, of course, Sebastian Stan. It's really funny inadvertently. Edward is he's very clumsy. He's very timid, and he's very unsure of himself. And it reminded me of The Substance because he has a lot of self-loathing, which he assumes is all because of how he looks. But Edward's got problems, but beside that, he's got a lot of things wrong on the inside, not just as he perceives the outside. Even when he gets this better face, some of his perceived problems go away. He seems to be much better with women. He's starting to go on lots of dates. But then when we meet Oswald, who had the same conditions, he's kind of shocked because Oswald doesn't have all the problems that he did when he still had the condition. Everyone loves Oswald. Oswald is very confident. He's very outgoing. He's good with women. He's been married. He has a child. He's successful in life. And Edward begins to really envy the man that is like he used to be. And so again, like The Substance, it's about a lot of the perceptions of youth and beauty and those things, but also like The Substance, it's about how we feel about ourselves on the inside. And like I said, there's a lot of comedy throughout. There's a lot of laughs, both intentional and unintentional. I really ended up enjoying it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the last 2/3 of this movie. The first act, the first third, is painfully slow. And it's painful on purpose because you are sitting with a very lonely Edward and nothing is going good in this guy's life, dude. It sucks so bad. It is difficult to get into. And he's a man who is very obviously insecure about this very obvious insecurity on his face. And when you wear your insecurity and it's the thing that bothers you the most, it is so impossible to get through it. I think a lot of people can relate to that. That's a lot of the reason it feels like The Substance, right? It's about how you look. And if only I could look better, then things would work out. But A Different Man is secretly, like The Substance, it's about Riz, man. It's about the sauce. Because Edward doesn't have it. And Guy thinks he has it. When he finally strips down and he looks like Sebastian Stan, he thinks, I got this worked out. But then he goes and tries to be an actor. He still can't do it. And then Oswald walks into the picture, a man who genuinely has this thing. And he's got sauce, dude. He's got so much riz. He's funny. Like, he's got quick lines. Like, he's witty. Everybody takes to him in the room. Everybody loves Oswald. And Guy is dying because he's like, why don't people like me? I finally accomplished the thing. I look like they want me to look. What's the deal? And it's painful and it hurts. But also that first act is slow, and there's not many cuts, and it's a pretty simple soundtrack too. So your whole first act is a lot of like sitting with tough feelings and realizing that this guy Edward is like so alone. And when Ingrid comes in, it's good, but you still kind of pity him and you wrestle with these feelings as an audience member. And then once you get to act 2, when things start kicking off, when the transformation happens, we're going to see a play, like things start to move. And by the end of the movie, it's moving almost too fast. Like we're almost like roller coaster off the track going so fast. I like there's some things that happen here that genuinely shocked me watching the movie. And I think it's all thoughtful. And I think it says it maybe better than the substance does in the way that it's such the kinetic relationship between the audience and Oswald and Edward and this disfigurement like is a lot more one-to-one because Oswald is somebody who genuinely has this, but it does not have the energy of the substance, and it does not have Coralie Farge's like razor sharp editing, and it doesn't quite have that. It's not as sexy as the substance. In fact, it's less sexy on purpose.
Right. That first act is slow. I appreciate it more now, especially Sebastian Stan, because so much of his character is just kind of how he holds himself. Like Edward just looks scared and timid all the time. Like he moves really slowly. He's just like he's hunched over, and he's not. And that's almost as impressive as the makeup part of it is because like Sebastian Stan is Sebastian Stan. He's the Winter Soldier. He's a very like handsome guy, and now he's playing this very like timid, scared, insecure person. He plays him so well, and you see that insecurity throughout the whole film, even after he becomes a different man and becomes, has the better face. So the performance is so good. And there's really brilliant foreshadowing in this movie. Edward is dealing with a leak in his apartment. There's the ceiling is dripping, and this hole in his ceiling is just getting bigger and bigger, and it's just slowly rotting. And it's a good metaphor for what's happened with Edward, because he's got, like I said, he's got problems on the inside, and they're getting worse, and he's letting them fester, and he's not addressing those things. He thinks it's all about his appearance. If only my face didn't look like this, everything would be right in my life. So yeah, the performances are really stunning.
Yeah, and it's a dark comedy too. And while I think it's at least lean on laughs in the first half, like it does get going. I think if you're looking for it, there's definitely some laughs to be had here. It's not the only metaphor in the movie either, I should say. Like the act of performance, right? Performing for others, and the way Ingrid puts on a play that is her former life, and she's directing 2 people in it. And one of them is Guy, who's playing Edward, who he actually was previous, though she won't admit to that. Uniquely, her stand-in in the play is of a different race, which I don't really understand, but I thought was unique. It was like it's not just somebody who looks like you, it's somebody who looks drastically different from Ingrid, which was interesting. Then Oswald walks in, and like the power struggle there is weird, and you kind of still feel bad for Guy, but also he's being an ass. So like it's interesting, and it's got a lot to say, and I definitely didn't get it all on first pass, but I am glad I watched it. We watched it on Hulu, I think is where it's available now. So light on score. Visuals are real simple, almost looks like it's shot on film, and a little claustrophobic, I should say. But I think that's appropriate for Edward and Guy, because that's kind of the space you're trapped in, right? Like it's tight and it's small and difficult. Any other thoughts or recommendations, Andy?
I actually did kind of enjoy the score. It is kind of a mystery, because Edward ends up doing a whole lot of stalking in this movie eventually,
Yeah.
so it kind of has that kind of soundtrack. But I think I really appreciated the themes in that the movie absolutely does acknowledge that yes, your appearance matters a lot. They're trying to be actors in this, especially at the beginning, and that has a lot to do with your appearance, but then it also acknowledges that there are internal things that are important to address as well. So I think I found the themes really fascinating. Like I said, it reminded me of The Substance, but kind of saying a different thing and in a very different way. Really good performances. I think I'm ready for recommendations.
Andy, would you recommend A Different Man?
Yeah, overall I would. I really enjoyed it. It is a little slow in the beginning, but it has really good performances. It's really funny. It surprised me how funny it was. And it has some really interesting themes about self-worth and our appearance and how those things are correlated and how they can change and society it's chewing on a lot. So highly recommend. It's available on streaming now. Hulu, you said?
Yeah, that's where I watched it, over on Hulu. Yeah, A Different Man's a good time. I think I'd recommend it for like the people who like a good slow burn A24 feature, right? Like, not for everyone. I know a lot of people who would start this movie and fall asleep halfway through it, right? Or they'd be like, "This is a bummer, dude. This is a downer." Like, you're definitely looking for somebody who seeking a little bit of bold cinema. But Aaron Schimberg ain't too bad. He wrote and directed it. I'm curious to see what he does next. And Sebastian Stan rocks. And I'm hoping, God willing, we see a little bit more of Adam Pearson, dude. He's actually really great in this movie. We'll see. Time will tell. But Different Man, not too shabby. And that's Off Script episode 280. My God, recording here is a little shorter because we get to insert a cool segment from earlier, but I realized this is probably one of our longest episodes to date, inadvertently, and I think we learned a lot about each other. More importantly, we learned a lot about ourselves. Andy, what are we watching next week?
So we'll be returning next month because it'll be February with Companion, the horror movie starring Sophie Thatcher and Zach Quaid. Looks like a lot of fun. Been here. Yeah. Sorry,
Jack Quaid. Yeah, that's fine. You're there.
And heard a lot of good things. Saw a friend who went to a sneak preview of it. Had good things to say, and then we'll be taking a look at something streaming to be decided. There's a lot of things out. These are both in theaters or streaming, so check for Sing Sing, Nickel Boys, Queer, Seed of the Sacred Fig. A lot of the Oscar stuff is out now and has wide release. So if you're looking to catch up on those will be available this weekend. But for next weekend, Companion and something on streaming.
Yes. If you enjoyed the show today, if you like what we're doing here on Off Script, hot takes on the Oscar Noms segment, let us know in the comments below. I'm sure there's a like button somewhere around where you're watching this. If you're one of our audio listeners, you can rate and review the podcast, of course. You can check us out on YouTube, where we get a lot of exciting things going on and new individual segments. Sometimes maybe early, maybe sometimes. We'll just have to see. Over on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the usual social media places. You can follow us over there. You can leave us correspondence at mail@offscriptfilmreview.com as email for you kids out there. And you can check out our website, offscriptfilmreview.com, for more interviews and press segments and other exciting stuff we got going on. Come check it out. Come hang out with your boys. And as always, thanks for watching Off Script episode 280. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.